a question here, will you also get the slides? We won't be making the slides available, unfortunately. There's various copyrighted materials on there, but you'll be able to see the slides as part of the recording, obviously. Okay. And we've just had more people join, a bunch of people from Thailand, more from Turkey. Okay. And we even have George Michael from Greece. Excellent. Welcome, George. I've just had a question. Is this the last session of the day? Yes, it is. So David will be closing the day for us. But we have another full schedule tomorrow. Starting, let me get the schedule up. So we've got another full program tomorrow. That's Thursday and Friday. So we'll be starting off tomorrow with Donya and Sarah Ellis talking to us about engaging and motivating students through visible progress. Then we've got a session which is very timely about what makes a good online teacher by my colleague Alan, who's based in Thailand. Then we've got a very special event that is the read along with Ian McEwan. Some of you may have tuned into Stephen Fry today. That was amazing. And tomorrow we've got another fantastic author, Ian McEwan. Then we've got another session on engaging activities for online lessons with teens, followed by a beginner's home high intensity training session with Susie Chan, who's a very famous exercise person, guru. Okay, and then tomorrow we'll be closing the day with a session on motivating teens to take responsibility for their own learning. Just had a question in the chat window. Why are some sessions in Zoom and some on YouTube? All of the sessions are in, all of the live interactive sessions are in Zoom, and we then make the recording available on YouTube. Okay, we also, by the way, stream all of this on Facebook Live. So that's another channel, but on Facebook Live, it's not really possible to interact with the presenter. So we encourage, Zoom is the home room, if you like. I've got a question here. Are there any more webinars after the 15th? So the 15th, that's the Friday, that's the final day of this 3-day Cambridge at Home experience. We will still run webinars from time to time on discrete topics or individual webinars, but Friday will be the end of this 3-day experience. David, you just got a lovely praise there in the chat window. Somebody who really loved your songs and teaching session earlier on. So excellent. Thank you. We just had another super chat message there. What an amazing job. Such effort. Hashtag supporting every teacher all over the world. Thank you. We do feel that we have Cambridge at home. Excellent. Good. That's really, really good to hear. Yeah, we've really felt for all of you teachers who've been having to do this. Many of you have suddenly been called upon to teach online, which many of you haven't been prepared to do, haven't had any training for. So we've really felt for you, and we've tried to do what we can to help and support you. On that note, if you haven't yet, please do explore our website, The World of Better Learning, where we've, over the past 6 weeks, 7 weeks, we've gathered a whole bunch of support materials, blog entries, videos, some of them in fact also by David, with hints and tips on how to teach primary level learners online, secondary learners, adult learners. Also some support for tools, how to use Zoom, for example, how to use the breakout rooms and so on. So if you haven't had a chance yet, please do explore the World of Better Learning presence that we have there. Okay, we still have some people arriving. We'll just give it another minute or two, and then we'll start the formal part. Okay, some people are saying this is the second or the third session today that they've attended. Excellent, pleased to hear that. Good. And another thank you from Morocco. You're very welcome. Very pleased that you're finding them useful. Okay, well, I think we'll make a start. So, welcome again. My name's Eric Baber. I'm the Director for Professional Learning and Development here at Cambridge University Press. And I'm very pleased to in a moment, hand over to David Valent, who is our closing speaker for our event for today. So David is coordinator of the IATEFL Young Learners and Teenagers Special Interest Group, and he works as a PhD research fellow in English language and literature subject pedagogy at Nord University in Norway, where he also teaches on a master's degree in primary education. David has over 20 years experience as a teacher, teacher educator, academic manager, author and editor, and his special interests include children's literature and ELT, primary and secondary teacher education, and inclusive practices. David's publications comprise a recent chapter on syllabus developments in primary ELT for the Routledge Handbook of Teaching English to Young Learners, and he's also the reviews editor for the Children's Literature in English Language Education Journal. Sounds like you're a very busy man, David. And with that, without further ado, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric, for that introduction. And thank you to all of you around the world for coming to the final session today. And huge thank you to Cambridge University Press for inviting me to give this final session today. This is especially for all of you who are teaching children, primary age children of around ages 6 to 10 online, or sending work for them to complete at home in this rather challenging period. And we'll be looking at practical ideas to increase the interaction around learning at home for children. Okay, so what are we going to be looking at in this session today? All right. Let me see. So this is our menu today. We're going to be looking at practical ideas and interactive ideas for the 4 skills, as well as for working with stories. And then at the end, we'll pull together some key principles that you can take away with you for your own online lessons or when you are sending work for children to complete at home that make it both practical and interactive. I want to start with this quote from James Bourke, and this is James Bourke writing in the ELT journal because it's something I think sometimes we can forget. I think sometimes teachers of language forget this when they're working with children in the physical classroom. And I think it's especially a possibility we might forget it when we're working in the online format and when we're sending work home for children to do. So really the key message throughout today's session is going to be to really avoid falling into that kind of trap of exercises and completing things in a sedentary way. Remembering children's worlds, the worlds that children inhabit, the world of imagination. If any of you were at the song session earlier today, that magical world. So really bearing that in mind with our online lessons with children and when we're sending work home, and really tapping into that creative, imaginative world and also the world of fantasy. So this quote really underpins what we'll be focusing on today. All right. So the 2 principles for you that I'd like you to think about is ways to provide practical, hands-on activities and tasks. Those of you who teach children already will know of the importance of making English language learning very practical and very activity driven. So we want to harness that, keep that when we're working in the online format. And also, as we know, for teaching a language, any language to any age range, language learning needs to have plenty of interaction to be effective. And so we'll be thinking about ways to integrate, to intersperse, to inject that level of interaction around the 4 language skills. Okay, so those are our 2 key principles we're working with today. All right, let's make this concrete then. Let's make it very clear. So, little task for you, you can type your suggestions into the chat box there. This for me posted recently on social media, and I really liked it because it's very visual, and it acts as something that you have next to you when you're preparing your online lessons and really dip into. It's a nice little visual menu of ideas for warmers when teaching online. Now, some of these are for children, some of these are for teenagers, and perhaps some of them are for adults. But thinking about children aged around 6 to 10, I've pulled out for you, based on these ideas from Jane Carville, 4 key principles. So I'll say one of the principles, and I want you to type in the chat box an example that you can see from Jane's online warm-up ideas there. So the first one then is make use of children's environments at home. So let's make the most or maximize the fact that children are in the house, in the apartment, they're at home. So look at the activities Jane suggests there and give me your ideas. Excellent. Okay, treasure hunt. Describe your home. Excellent. Lovely. All right. Draw on children's preferences and passions, so using their interests as context for your online lessons. So just have a look there. Exactly. Excellent. Talk about your toys. Show your pet. Brilliant. Name that tune. Love it. Also, activities which enable children to show and tell online. Very important for interaction. Showing and telling. Brilliant. Excellent. Lovely. Yes. Family photos. Really nice. What are you into? Very personalized. Excellent. Okay. And very importantly, this quite unusual situation that we can see as a real positive is maximize children having other voices at home. Now, by other voices, I mean family members, parents, brothers, sisters. So how can we maximize that? Have a look there. So I'm thinking here about the how-to. So if you see the how to make a cup of tea and so on, so the children can really get that support from an older brother, an older sister, from a parent, a grandparent, and so on at home. So we can make the most of that to give them support by drawing on the help of the family in our online lessons with children. So I thought that was a very nice one to share with you that you can refer to. It really gives you an example of the suggestions that I'm going to be making around interaction, around making learning practical. Okay, moving on then. I'm going to be giving you material I'm going to be demonstrating today is freely downloadable, and you can see the link there on the Cambridge website, the Fun Skills website, and you can download these home booklets. So we've got home booklet 2, which is pre-A1 starters level, home booklet 4, this is A1 movers level, and home booklet 6, this is A2 flyers level. So for different language levels there, and I'm going to be sharing ideas with you for working with each of these different language levels. And we're talking about children, as I said, around 6 to 10. And we'll be looking at the 4 skills and stories for each of these levels. Now, the thing is, because these home booklets were designed specifically for working at home and for children learning more independently at home with the help of family, there isn't a teacher's guide. So it's not like a course book. And in a way, this gives you the freedom. It gives you the freedom to be creative and the freedom to really experiment. However, they weren't originally designed for online learning. So what I want to do today is really share this great resource with you but also give you some support by giving you lots of ideas for how you can bring the home booklet into the online learning environment. Okay, and what I'd like to start with is reading, all right? So remember, make it practical and make it interactive. So let's start with reading. We're going to look first of all at Home Booklet 2, which is pre-A1 starters. Okay, so here's a reading all around the park. So the children developing their visual literacy there, the children are looking at the picture, and they are reading the sentences, the 5 sentences, they're deciding yes or no. So a child-friendly, true, false style reading exercise. And we want to make this practical and we want to make it interactive. So the first way to do this is through our lead-in activity, so pre-reading. What could we do in an online lesson pre-reading? So my first idea for you today is a guided visualization. So drawing on children's own experiences of the world, and there's a chance they've been to a park before, that there is a park in their town, in their city, and you could do a guided visualization where the children close their eyes, they picture that park in their mind's eye, what's in the park, what can they see in the park, who is in the park, what are they doing in the park. So personalizing, starting immediately from the children's own experience. And then to make it interactive, we can use the activity Teacher Says. So look at the actions there. For example, 2 ducks are swimming on the water. So teacher says, swim on the water. So the children swim on the water. Or, and if teacher doesn't say, the children don't do it. So it's a classic TPR activity, but it brings in that interaction. Now, what you don't want when you're doing your online lessons is you don't want it to be excessively teacher-centered. Just in the way in our physical classroom, we don't want to be excessively teacher-centered. So we can hand over and have the child, so Ahmad says, or Susan says, or Wang says, etc. So give them that good, clear model and then hand over these activities. So how can we lift that reading task where it's a yes-no sentence off the So one of my favorite quick and easy ideas is through mini whiteboards. And I love mini whiteboards for on learning. So these are really simple and really easy to make. So a homemade mini whiteboard that I made earlier. Can you see that? So all it is a plastic pocket with white paper inside. All right, so homemade whiteboard, marker pen, the children can draw on and hold up yes, hold up no. And then afterwards, remember you need the right kind of marker. So remind the children it needs to be erasable. And then they can erase and reuse again. So this is great for checking answers in a physical way, and also for holding up words and so on. So the mini whiteboard is your friend. Also, so is the post-it note. Brilliant for lifting that material off the page and interspersing that practical interaction. So very simple, but very useful to enliven the material. And then we want to involve families. So here you can see a design your own park activity through junk modeling, through Play-Doh, and where you make this material into material for online lessons, in the next lesson, the children then present their park. So they show and tell. And remember, that goes back to Jane Carville's ideas of showing and telling. So it's a great way to link the work they've done at home with the family back into the online lesson in the next lesson. So those are some ideas for you that you can adapt. and use with other reading activities and other reading texts and materials at the pre-A1 starters level. Moving on then to the movers level, A1 movers. So here we have Sasha's blog, and it's a text all about the zoo. So again, very child-friendly and in the child's world. And just like we visualize the park, imagine the park, what can you see, who's park, what's going on, similarly with the zoo. So the child will have either been to the zoo or certainly seen a zoo on TV, in a book, and so on. So that guided visualization, really, really useful. Looking at all of that vocabulary, so for that, those missing words, teacher, pandas, parrots, and so on. So that classic back to the board activity, which I'm sure you've played in the physical classroom, where the child takes the hot seat, and it can be in groups and so on, and the other children give examples or they mime to try and get the child in the hot seat to say pandas or parrot or opened, etc. And this can be done as a back to the webcam activity, okay? So adapting these classic classroom, physical classroom-based activities to the online virtual learning environment. And then to make the reading tasks more interactive, we can again use our mini whiteboards where the children hold up the words, erase their words, or the post-it notes as well. Activity for the family, Liz. Designing a comic strip. Sasha's blog is all about a trip to the zoo. Well, a creative idea is designing a trip to the bottom of the sea. Remember James Burke's quote about fantasy, make-believe, imagination. So a comic strip about the bottom of the sea. And again, it's not just something they do at home, outside of English lessons. They then bring this and present, and they say what they took to the bottom of the sea, how they got to the bottom of the sea, who they went with, and the things they did at the bottom of the sea. So making it very interactive there. And now for our higher level, our A2 movers, we see this blog, is it? Yes, no, a diary entry. And we have two different countries here, so bringing in a little bit of intercultural learning. And we have Norway, which is coincidentally where I am now, where it's snowing. And we also have China. And so when we're working with countries online, I always like to use a Peters projection map. Why? Because what's great about the Peters projection map is it shows the world in its actual proportions, which visually in itself is great for the development of children's visual literacy. So I have the children find Norway on the map, anything they know about Norway, have they seen Norway on television, anything about China they've seen, and then to engage them in this text. Similarly, we have these objects. So we have the backpack, the hat, the gloves, and the sunglasses. So you can see the pictures there. Well, we can enliven this, lift it off the page by putting these objects in our magic bag. Now, I really like to get the children rapping when we use the magic bag. For example, what's that in the bag? I said, what's that in the bag? All together now, what's that in the bag? I said, what's that in the bag? Remember, be brave, be bold, and lift off the roof. Okay, so my backpack, my hat, my gloves, my sunglasses all come out of the magic bag. So we've really lifted this reading text off the page, and we've used our objects and we've used our Peters projection map to help the children predict, and then they can read and check their predictions. Linked to this then, we have with the families a creative hands-on task linked to topic. So China, we have making our Chinese lantern. And then trying to take this further and making the most of the fact that the children have the support of families at this time, working at home. So a little mini web quest with 5 questions all about this festival of Chinese New Year to bring in that intercultural learning. So when does it happen? What foods do people eat when they celebrate Chinese New Year, etc., etc. And then in the next class, they can present what they found out. Okay, so those are some ideas for you that you can take and adapt for other reading texts in the home booklets and in your course book materials and so on when you're learning online. Moving on then. Now we're going to have a look at listening skills. So again, practical and interactive ideas for listening. You can download, by the way, the audios from the link I showed you before. So the Fun Skills link, all of these audios are freely available. So here's some ideas for these 2 principles to develop listening skills. So this one then, all around numbers. And so bringing in your songs. So those of you who attended this morning, we were looking at songs, weren't we? Well, great for numbers. So reviewing numbers 1 to 20 using songs. And then you can see the dice there. Well, having the children make their own dice. So this is a great listening activity for listen and make. So making the dice. And again, making it interactive, we can lift this activity off the page by having the children hold up their dice and hold up the number of dots as well. Very nice quiz there, where they're finding out some fascinating facts. And again, they can help draw on the help of their families for this. So some of my favorite child-safe search engines are Searchy Pants, KidRex, Kiddle. So those are 3 search engines you might like to check and recommend that the children use, and then they can feed back using the mini whiteboards again in the next online lesson. Okay, so moving on then to the A1 movers level. And this is one of my favorite topics, food. Okay, so starting on a personalized note, having the children brainstorm their favorites. So starting from the child's world, remembering James Bourke's quote in the ELT journal. So children brainstorming their favorite drinks, their favorite desserts, their favorite homemade dishes. Also, a great one to make this more creative is have children brainstorm a different food for each color of the rainbow. So tell me some foods which are red. Tell me some foods which are yellow. Tell me some foods which are pink. Tell me some foods which are green, etc. So it's a little creative twist on brainstorming in a child-friendly and engaging way. Having a way to make the listening task more interactive, having the children draw the foods, so they could draw the foods on the post-it notes and then hold them up, so making the feedback physical. And a very creative task linked to this that the children can do with their families is the mini book. And the potential here is endless for crazy combinations. Some of you might know the children's picture book with the title, Do You Like Ketchup on Your Cornflakes? Which is absolutely hilarious for children when they can make these really crazy combinations. Right, so, and then they can share the mini books they've made and tell each other and ask each other the question. So excellent question formation practice in a very child-friendly and embedded way in the next online lesson. So remembering that principle of show and tell, showing our mini books and then telling the classmates online what story we have made, and then interaction, so asking each other, do you like ice cream on your meatballs, and so on. So very, very creative potential there with this topic. Moving on then to the next level, our A2 flyers. And this is all around animal habitat. So a very common course book topic. And a way to enliven this is bringing in that action, bringing in that mind. So the Arctic, so this is me now, freezing in the snowy Arctic. Also the desert, it's so hot in the desert. So the teacher can show the photographs, which I'm sure you do a lot of online, but then really involving the children by getting them to do the actions. So the jungle, the Arctic, the desert, and so on. And then the children can make, again, the picture cards with the different habitats. And the teacher says, for example, a tortoise or a polar bear, and the children hold up the habitat. So a great physical way of checking the concept and checking understanding. So how could we lift this listening activity off the page, ready to do the listening? Well, the children could recreate this table as it is there, but on their mini whiteboard. And then they listen and they fill in those missing gaps. And then for feedback, they can hold up their mini whiteboards. So again, it lifts the material off the page in a very easy way for you and for them. And then let's get that creativity going, work they can do with the family after the lesson. They can invent an animal and they can invent its habitat. What does this animal eat? Does the animal eat ketchup on its cornflakes? And so on. And then showing and telling, they present their animal in the next lesson. Okay. So those are some ideas for listening, and now moving on to speaking. So this one brings in the craft. So what you have here is the object cards for a guessing game. So you can have the children cut up these cards. So this is in the book, this is book 2. And then you describe. So for example, it's got 2 eyes and it's green. And the children hold up the picture of the frog, and so on. It's a food, and it's red and green. It's sweet. And the children hold up the picture of the watermelon, and so on. This links to the topic of holidays. So to start on a personalized note, you could have the children bring in and hold up a photo. Well, not bring in, because it's not the physical classroom, but bring to the online lesson a photograph from a past holiday, for example. Or they could draw an imaginary holiday. And then they can take turns, so it's a speaking task, to ask and answer questions about their holiday. Where did you go? What did you see? And so on. And then, based on this odd out game with the family, the children can use those cards. So you see those cards, the transport, the furniture, the school objects, the stationery, and so on. This can be made into, through the post-it notes again, into an activity, and they can play this with their family. And then in the next online lesson, they can show their cards. So it's a very hands-on activity that really enlivens speaking skills. Moving on to A1 movers. So this one then is all about a dream. And I think this period is a time when children should be really encouraged to use their imaginations and dream. So they, again, the principle of guided visualization, so the children can close their eyes and think about a good dream that they had, a really positive dream. And then they can draw on their mini whiteboards 4 things about the dream. So that's starting in a very nice, creative, personalized way. And the speaking is asking and answering questions about that dream. So what happened? Was it fun? Was it scary? Tell me more about your dream. Great speaking opportunity. Also, you can work with those pictures of the boy, and they use the 4 image to predict what happened in the boy's dream. Very nice creative task linked to this, to do with the family, is making a dream catcher. And that idea of doing mini research, the children can research using a child-friendly search engine. Why do people have dream catchers? What do dream catchers symbolize? And so on. And then they can make their dream catcher with their family and show that in the next lesson. All right, and then speaking at the A2 level, flyers, this is a very creative speaking activity using dice again and question formation. Those of you who came to this morning's song session or today's song session, we embedded our questions in the song. This is embedding question forms in a game, a personalized game. It would be very nice to lead in with photographs and have the children brainstorm. So a photograph for each topic. So you see we have food, we have games, we have places, we have likes, we have abilities. So the photos could introduce this, and then the children predict the topics. For each of the questions, one thing I like to do with question forms to build children's speaking confidence is fun and physical drilling. So stand up, sit down drill for the stressed words, the crocodile mouths on the stressed words, clicking and clapping on our stressed words and our intonation, all of these fun and physical techniques to really build children's confidence when asking questions. And then they can make their dice. That could be through a listen and make, and then they can throw the dice and then ask each other questions. They can then extend this by asking questions with their family, and you should always recycle and always review by having the children show and tell what they did with the family in the next online lesson. So those are ideas for speaking. And moving along then to writing. Practical and interactive writing. So again, book 2, our pre-A1 starters level. This is a nice idea as well for the feely bag. So we talked about putting the feely bag that they aren't feeling, but they're looking at and they're guessing. They're guessing what's in that bag. It could be what's in the box as well. But you can do this with pictures, you can do this with photos, you can do this with your flashcards, the flashcards you usually use in your classroom, and reveal the objects and have the children wrap. Now, a really nice one that children like to do is when you give them the opportunity to shout out the answers, because we're often saying in our physical classroom, don't shout out, raise your hands. Well, an outburst activity is an opportunity when we do encourage the children to shout out. So you have 30 seconds to shout out all of the things in your bedroom as quickly as you can. So this is a really active way to get the children recycling and reviewing vocabulary that's very, very child-friendly. Or you can put your pictures of the different bedroom objects in the feely bag. Remember that. What's that in the bag? I said, what's that in the bag? All together now? Okay. Really nice creative task here for the families using an egg box. And they make egg heads. Great springboards for role playing and speaking. With younger children, it would be finger puppets. And when children reach primary, the egg head is a more primary way of doing the early years finger puppets. Really, really like the egg heads activity. And then have the children show their egg heads, perhaps not in the next lesson, because these seeds take a little bit of time to grow. And hopefully, by the time they do grow, the children will be back at school, we hope. All right, moving on then to our next one, which is A1 Movers, book 4. And this is guessing the titles of the story. So a classic activity here. use those pictures. So you have a picture of the elephant, you have the picture of the boy dressed up. So start with the visual, have the children predict. So bringing in that interaction, what do you think happens in the story? It gives them a reason to listen to the story, to read the story. Another one story is about the jungle, it's that atmosphere of the jungle. Another one is about a snowy mountain. So an activity I first learned from Carol Reed is what she calls the sound collage. Now, the sound collage is where you have children close their eyes and visualize where they are. So you're in the jungle. What can you hear? What are the sounds? Now make your sound. And the children can turn on their microphones and make these sounds. Maybe someone's a parrot. Maybe someone is a trickling stream, and you get this great musical collage to set the context in an engaging way. So that's a really nice child-friendly way to lead into the story of the jungle and the snowy mountain. For this activity where the children choose the best title for the story, again, they could make strips with the 3 different titles and then hold them up and say why they think it's this title. All right, and then of course, a creative extension follow-up task for this is having the children make their own adventure story. So we have the story of the jungle, we have the story of the snowy mountain, and then the children are going to make an 8-page mini book with their families and with the support of their families for making the book, but also brainstorming ideas. And this is a great way to involve older siblings and parents and other caregivers at home to help children imagine and appeal to that make-believe for their own adventure story. And of course, showing and telling in the next lesson, they can show their 8-page book, mini book, and tell each other the story. So a very personalized, very creative way to show and tell and provide that writing practice at home. Moving on to the A2 level then, this is Flyers, book 6. Here we have a very engaging story all about planets and outer space. So great cartoons there at the beginning of a space journey. And using those pictures, the children can brainstorm the setting. So where are we? Who are the characters? What do you think will happen in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the story? And the children share ideas. So immediately we're bringing in that element of interaction around the story. And this is very important, this giving them that speaking practice to scaffold writing for children to then write their own stories. And you see those prompts in the word clouds there, the blue, the purple, and the red. Great craft activity to do with the families then is having children create a planet, and you see all of the equipment they need there, which are things that are around the house. And then they need their families to help them make that planet safely. And I'm calling this a jigsaw task because in the next online lesson, the children can show their planet, and each of their planets contributes to a virtual solar system. So an online classes solar system. So a very nice way for each child to contribute creatively to this outcome. All right, so hopefully that's really inspired you with hands-on, practical, and importantly, interactive ways to develop children's skills online. Now, I want to move on briefly to stories, okay? So, now, I hope you've managed to download these home booklets, because you'll see there's QR codes. So you see at the top the QR code for the book 2, which is our A1, A1 starters level. And this is a story, Nedda and the Alien. Okay, so how are we going to work with these animated stories to bring in that interaction? So again, a guided visualization. And this is life on the moon. So imagine you're on the moon. You're walking on the moon. Is it hot? Is it cold? How do you feel? Etc. And there we have our picture of Zach and our picture of Neda. And we can use those pictures to have them predict, how does Zach get around? What language does he speak? So we're giving them a reason to then listen and watch the QR code. And this is a great way to involve families as well, those other voices at home, so that maybe the children don't have access to the technology, the smartphone, the iPad or whatever, but the parents, the older siblings may have. If not, it's not a problem because you have the story here in the materials. So the children can use those visuals to predict, then watch or use the QR code, or then have them read the story to check their predictions. And this is a very personalized story because it relates to the children's context of learning a language. So like the children are learning English, Neda, the character, is learning Moonglish. And Zach is helping Neda learn Moonglish through pictures and painting pictures. And the children can then find out how to say hello in 2 different languages, so that mini research, and also paint more pictures to help Neda learn Moonglish and show those pictures, which are learner training actually, ways for them to learn a language in the next online lesson. So moving on then to the A1 movers level, we have Skippy, the coolest dancer. Another idea I'm borrowing from Carol Reed is the dancing statues activity, where we use very short snippets of music styles and the children dance in those styles. So show me waltzing, show me rock and roll, show me tango, etc. And the children hear those snippets, they show it, and then when you pause, they freeze on the webcam. So dancing statues, very child-friendly, very engaging way to lead in. Also looking at the picture of Skippy to predict, what dances do you think Skippy does? Does he rock and roll? Does he disco? Does he techno? Show me. And having the children show each other the dances. And then that gives them a reason to then watch the animated story, listen to the story, and find out. Great way to extend this story for a speaking task. If you look at the story, there is Skippy and there's also the teacher. And so a mini dialogue, having the children role play the dialogue between Skippy and the teacher. Very creative way to extend the story. And finally, with these stories, I have an example from the A2 Fires level, all about Jones, so the character Jones. And Jones is a bit of a superhero, as you can see from those pictures. And you can use those pictures for prediction. And also, again, an outburst activity, so drawing on the children's schemata or their background knowledge of superheroes. So you have 30 seconds to shout out, turn on your microphones, I want to hear you, or type in the chat box, all the things that superheroes can do. And now let's compare by using the QR code and watching what Jones can do. Really creative activity is to have children invent a new character and then write about what this character can do, what superpowers this character has, perhaps doing an acrostic like you see there for Jones to give them those sentence starters and those springboards for creativity. So those are some ideas for you with the animated stories through the QR codes for the 3 different levels. Okay, so to pull all of this together, we've gone very quickly through reading, through listening, through speaking, through writing, and the animated stories. I want to share with you 10 key principles or ideas for working with children online and or when sending work for them to do at home. And here they are. So, as you'll have seen, you'll have noticed from what I've been saying, the importance of that physicality, of getting children moving, being active online and doing. So it's not passive and it's not sedentary. Appealing to the imagination and guided visualization. So having the children close their eyes and transport themselves into other worlds. So we're outer space or the real world. We're in the park. We're in the shop. So that drawing on them, the mind's eye, and having the children visualize is an excellent way to really lift the material off the page, allowing for ideas generation and really drawing on children's families outside of the online lessons to help them generate ideas and brainstorm and then have them reshare those ideas in the next lesson. When you're working with your reading tasks, your listening tasks, one of the best ways I find to give the children a real purpose, a reason to read that text or listen to that text is prediction. So getting them guessing based on the pictures, based on the sounds, what do they think is going to be in that text? And then the children read or listen to find out. Very, very important for online learning is the visual. So bringing in those real photographs and having the children also draw through the mini whiteboards and so on. So there's that strong visual element and also the tactile element of the realia through things like your magic bag, but also having the children hold up photographs and the children hold up realia. So it's not only come from the teacher. As you saw with some of the ideas, having the children invent characters, really important for creativity. Jigsaw tasks, we saw that through the Create Your Planet. So by the children sharing the different planets they thought of, we had a whole solar system. So that's really giving each child a role in the creative process. Drawing on the fact that they have their families to support them, giving them mini web quests to do at home, and then share what they found out. Super important, physical feedback. So feedback isn't what's number one, Muhammad, what's number two, Ahmad, and so on. No, we want to really lift that, animate that, using our tools to make it physical. Stand up if it's true. Wave your hands in the air if it's true. Physical feedback. And super, super important is having those creative outcomes linked to the work you're doing online. So those are my 10 principles for English learning at home. I hope they're useful for you. I hope you have been inspired by this session and you're able to experiment with some of those. So my key message today is to be practical and to be interactive when teaching children online or sending work home. For more ideas there's the blog posts and the podcast that I did recently for Cambridge University Press, where I expand more on the things we've been talking about in this session. So do download those free home booklets and the audio and visit the blog posts. And hopefully this has been useful today.
Thank you very much, David. That was fantastic. And there's lots and lots of praise in the chat window. I see words like amazing, fabulous, inspirational. So fantastic. Thank you very much. I've gathered a few questions. We do still have 5, maybe 10 minutes. Just so I'll throw some of these at you. Just before I do that, a few housekeeping things. There's quite a few people asking about certificates. You will be able to download them in a moment from the chat window, but we will also email them to you. But coming back to David, could you repeat, please, the names of those 3 child-friendly search engines? There's lots of requests for that.
Yes. So we have KidRex, so KIDREX, KidRex, Kiddle, KIDDLE, and also Searchy Pants. So search with a Y, and then pants, PANTS. So those are 3 you might want to try. There are others, of course.
Super, thank you very much. Then a couple of very practical questions. How long should an online lesson be for learners of this age? And how many students would be optimal to have in one of those classes?
Well, I think, you know, it depends how much freedom you have around that. It might be that your school, your institution has already set these things. I think the younger the children, the shorter the bursts. So it depends if we're talking about the 6-year-olds or we're talking about the 10-year-olds, but we would, you know, with the younger primary, we'd be wanting 45 minutes-ish. The older primary could be longer. But, you know, it's important that you have plenty of variety going on there if your lesson is 60 minutes or 90 minutes or so on, because it is, you know, from the physical classroom, the need to stir, the need to settle, the need to maintain, grab attention. And so hopefully with this repertoire of physical and interactive ideas, you will be able to maintain attention. The smaller the group, obviously, the more interaction you can have in terms of them turning on their webcams and so on. But it is important, no matter how many children there are, that they all do have an opportunity. And that's why things like physical feedback and using the non-verbal and using things like the mini whiteboard, the post-it notes, the gestures, the dancing, the singing, all of those ideas are things that you can do with bigger groups as well. So it really depends on what you're focusing on and how you intersperse these ideas. So have that variety and try and make it as hands-on as possible.
Okay, super, thank you. Then we had a number of questions around the involvement of parents. One question is, how can we get parents to get more engaged, more involved, and how can we enthuse them? Or the flip side, what kind of activities can you recommend that don't require the involvement of the parents?
Well, I'd say it's not only parents. You know, we have, it depends on the country and so on, and whether you're in a country that's still on lockdown and, you know, whether people can go outside and so on. But we do, one advantage of this very challenging situation is we do have a little bit of a captive audience, in a sense of when we're teaching children in the physical classroom, it can be more difficult to engage parents, brothers, sisters, and so on. But if they're all at home, what a great opportunity to get them involved. And I think even if they are not so engaged in the more book-based work, that's why I've really tried to recommend arts and crafts activities, because it is fun for all the family. And I wouldn't mind if it happens in their own language as well, because it's the brainstorming, it's the ideas sharing stage, etc. So I think the ideas we've been sharing with these home booklets also allow parents and brothers, sisters, grandparents who don't speak any English to be really involved in this learning process. So I think, you know, be creative if you want them to be collaborative.
Super, that's great, thank you. I'm afraid that's all we have time for in terms of questions and answers. There were a few questions in there around teaching tips for teaching teenagers, secondary age learners. So I'd invite you to join tomorrow. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. UK time, we're running a session on engaging activities for online lessons with teens. So thank you to you, David. That was superb. And
thank you so much.
Thank you to everyone for joining. So you should be able to download your certificate now already from the chat window, but we will also be emailing you the certificate and also a link to the recording of today's session. So a number of you requested the slides. So by re-watching the recording, you'll be able to see the slides again.